And I was working a lot, but with the assistance of ChatGPT, I think it would have completely changed my workflow. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CFI's FinPod podcast. I'm your host, Mian. I'm the VP of Content and Training here at CFI. I'm sure you've heard me many times before. Today, we're going to do a member spotlight, one of my favorites as we get to know our subscriber base. And I'm so excited here today to have with me Dang Duong, because he is probably the youngest person that we are going to have on this podcast. And I found you via LinkedIn because you were completing so many of our programs, so many of our courses, certifications. And it was just so exciting to see someone that was so young, that is so focused, knows kind of what you want to do, and knows also how to go out and achieve those things. So welcome to the podcast. So tell us, where in the world are you joining us from right now? Because we're in very different time zones right now.
Oh, so I'm actually joining you guys from like Singapore. So in my time zone, we live in two different sides of the world. So yeah.
It's very extreme. It is 8 a.m. roughly here, but it's midnight where you are.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit before, and I was just so I'm a bit older, and I just can't believe how quickly that you've developed this interest in finance at such a young age and decided to go and research the things that you can do currently and go and learn as much as possible. Because, for example, I know that you've shared that you want to eventually complete your CFA designation, but right now it's currently not possible because there are some educational and career requirements for you to do so. But I would love to hear from you. So typically I kind of ask, what is your career, like finance kind of origin story? Like, how did you get started and whatnot? But it's a little bit different for you. I would love to understand, where did you get this interest? Or maybe start off by giving our audience the background, because you are part of our subscriber base. You are one of the many people that I love to hear stories from. And people, as much as you know CFI through our courses, people love to get to know anyone that is also concurrently using CFI. And so I would love to understand, and I think our listeners would love to understand, where are you currently at in your life? And how and when did you get this interest in finance?
I'm currently a student in Polytechnic. That's a school in Singapore. I basically got my interest in banking and finance and business back in secondary school, where I kept reading up on financial news, business news, how to make money, how businesses make money, and how to invest in stocks. And this interest further
Now tell us, what is Polytechnic? Because for example, I'm from North America. I'm in Canada, and so I don't know. I'm not familiar with what Polytechnic is. But tell us a little bit. Just what is that briefly?
Oh, so in Singapore's education system, you first go through primary school, secondary school, and then you graduate to move on to secondary school, and then from secondary school you get to choose between three different streams: junior college, polytechnic, and ITE. So what I've chosen is more of is polytechnic, because it helps you actually like narrow down on what you actually want to do. It's more like a pre university.
So maybe you could tell us briefly, for those of us that don't know, what are those three streams that you mentioned that you could go and branch out from after secondary school? Because it seems like there's secondary school, and then there's your traditional undergraduate university degree, but then there's something in between at Singapore, and in that in between you have three programs that you could choose from, and you've chosen Polytechnic. But maybe you could explain to us what all three of those are, just for those that are curious.
Oh, so the first one, it's junior college. Basically, you're learning in detail what you're learning in secondary school. Like, you're still learning sciences, literature, geography, history, all those general things like further maths. It's basically an enhanced secondary school. As for Polytechnic, it's basically like a pre-university where they have like this GPA system where they have modules, group projects. You have to maintain a good GPA for every semester, and therefore, from these two streams, you get to directly go to university if you do well. For for ITE, it's more you have to like spend more time on it. Basically, you spend 2 years there, and then you go to Polytechnic, and then you go to university. So I think ITE is like a pre-Polytechnic. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so with Polytechnic, I'm curious, is it more of an academic program or is it applied learning that you kind of learn skills that you would need after university, like when you get a job, or is it just very much a continuation of, traditional academics?
Oh, if you talk about it this way, junior college it's more so Polytechnic, it's actually applied learning where you get to specialize in different industries like engineering, health, nursing, biotech. For me, it's banking and finance. Other people can specialize in accounting.
And so with Polytechnic, um, so if the Polytechnic degree is 3 years of applied learning, so that's really interesting because then that gives you a chance to almost try out like a career path before you really commit to it and do an undergraduate degree. Um, I would love to understand, at this point in your life, where did you get that interest in finance? Um, did you have parents that worked in finance or relatives? I'd love to get an understanding of what's driven you to, like, so what's really, like, what most caught my eye is at how much that you've completed with CFI, and I would just love to understand what gives you that motivation, like what gave you such a strong interest so early on.
So about my background, my parents are actually not in finance. My father is a chemist, and I think my mom is like a consultant somewhere. But they're not. It's not finance related. So I guess that interest came from like within, where I always had an interest in making money, seeing where money flows, uh, raising capital, all that kind of things. And when I joined my polytechnic, it further enhanced my interest in this field uh, where actually in the first year of polytechnic I self-studied the entire CFA level 1 curriculum. Yeah.
And
And
now, how
yeah.
was that, last year or the year before?
I think it was actually like 2 years ago. 2 years ago when I finished studying like the entire CFA level 1 curriculum. I'm not eligible to take it though because you need to like be uh within 2 years of graduation from your undergrad program, but I'm in polytechnic. So
But you're
I guess
ready. You're ready when the time comes.
I'm ready. Therefore, seeing since there's like not really much to do, I guess I picked up like I guess did some research on like financial modeling courses like online finance training providers like CFI, and therefore I chose CFI as the place where I want to enhance my finance knowledge. And with CFI, I'm able to like now build discounted cash flow models, leverage buyout models, merger
And like,
models.
honestly, it's just so interesting that you've even gone out and found that on your own. Did Polytechnic, did the teachers encourage you to go and try and find things where you could practice and build practical skills? Because typically what happens is, and this would be more kind of, like 10 years ago in my age, where you would go through an undergraduate program, you'd learn all of these kind of like academic skills. You'd learn about finance, economics, statistics in like a very closed academic setting. And then all of a sudden, when you go to work, it's like, hey, you don't take a textbook with you. All of a sudden, you're at your desk. You have to apply this knowledge into the real world. You have to be developing computer skills. So whether it's a programming language or just Excel and PowerPoint and general presentation skills, those are all kind of things that were largely an afterthought kind of 10 years ago. It's like, okay, you're in school, like it's time for you to, expand your mind, expand your horizons. And then all of a sudden when you graduate, it's like, okay, now the skills you need are very different and you didn't develop them necessarily in school, but it's time now. And you've bridge that gap on your own. And I'm curious, did your instructors or teachers encourage you to go out and try and find things where you could build practical knowledge? Or did you just go out on Google and kind of find it on your own because you're interested?
Well, it's actually on my own accord, as I think
Wow.
it's because the materials in my school are like they're okay, but like they don't really go that in depth into what finance is actually is, and therefore like since I wanted to like mm, deepen my knowledge in this sector, I therefore looked around and see like uh what are some reputable online finance training providers out there, and therefore I stumbled upon a CFI, and therefore I just bought it with my yeah. It's quite
And would you
expensive.
say that you're just like a really curious person by nature?
Oh yes, I actually am, because like
Yeah.
my goal is to go into investment banking, private equity, basically high finance, and I
You want to
basically
go into investment banking and then private equity in that order?
uh, well that would be ideal, but um from with that goal in mind, I basically have to try to pick up financial modeling knowledge and skills, and therefore what better way to pick it up than through CFI, yeah.
And so you have you're a planner. I know from like your resume and all your background that you're a planner. And so like you want to have a career in investment banking. And typically a very traditional path is people love to go into investment banking and then thereafterwards go into private equity. But from where you are now in Polytechnic to having a first job as an investment banking analyst, there's lots of kind of steps in between. And I know that you've made lots of strides to closing that gap as time passes. Now, I'd love to hear about your internship experience because I know you have an internship. What got you? What is it part of your Polytechnic program that you have to do an internship, or did you kind of pursue it on your own? Like, tell us about your internship experience.
Oh, so my internship experience is actually provided by my Polytechnic. It's quite nice actually. So my internship was at a private bank, Julius Baer, and from there I was in a compliance role. I did some anti-money laundering and countering terrorist financing, like screenings with things like with tools like World Check and Factiva. But it's more. I actually learned more about like automation with reporting reporting, because every week you have to like generate reports with like the data that you have. Uh, with From there, I actually picked up Excel, VBA, and Power Query to automate all these tasks, and it actually proved useful because it saved me a lot of time. And since my work was done primarily on Excel, I was able to build a lot of like shortcuts, um, where I was able to like um, make my work flow efficient. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, talking about making workflows more efficient, I'm curious in Polytechnic. So in the past year or so, maybe past year and a half, we've seen the advent of generative AI. We've seen ChatGPT come along. And ChatGPT has certainly made my workflow easier. That's I've recently discovered. But as I'm learning ChatGPT, I'm slowly starting to realize that ChatGPT could have done a lot of the work that I did as an investment banking analyst. But more importantly, and I think more realistically, it would have made my job as an analyst much more productive. Like I would have been able to work, I would have been able to do more in less time. And I was working a lot, but with the assistance of ChatGPT, I think it would have completely changed my workflow. Has your Polytechnic program been able to adopt the use of ChatGPT? Did you use ChatGPT at Julius Baer, or was that more than kind of 2 years ago?
Uh, Actually, my Polytechnic has been adopting generative AI and ChatGPT, which I kind of like. And but what they do is they actually like make a generative AI disclosure where we need to fill in what generative AI tools we use, like if it's ChatGPT, if it's Quillbot. Yeah, and I guess that's like a progressive step to it. As for Julius Baer, we actually weren't allowed to use ChatGPT, even though the internship was like, I think it was like uh less than a year ago. It's because they were afraid that confidential information will like leak out
Oh
to
yeah.
ChatGPT or like use because I know these things are used to train the AI models, and therefore yeah.
And so, have you had any other experiences, internships in finance apart from Julius Baer?
Not really, but
So,
since uh my holidays are coming, I'm trying to seek finance internships with all the skills I currently have.
And so we've talked a little bit about what you learned and what you took away from your role at Julius Baer. I'd be curious to know what is the next internship that you're seeking? And like, is it even in Singapore? Do you have, aspirations to move out and travel and live in different parts of the world? Finance is very, I know that finance is there's a big hub of it in Singapore, which probably works out very conveniently. But yeah, like I'd love to just understand what's your next internship that you're looking for? And do you want to stay in Singapore? What's the future hold in store for you?
Well, for staying in Singapore, yes, I would definitely stay in Singapore. And for finance roles that I'm looking for, I'm actually looking for more of the quantitative side of things, because back in compliance, it's actually more of the qualitative side, which is okay for some people, but for myself, who is like more analytical, I somewhat prefer more of the math side of things, like valuation, like even portfolio optimization, these kinds of things. Yeah, a quantitative finance role would be pretty ideal for me.
Well, that's really interesting because you're so how many years of Polytechnic do you have left? Is it just one or two?
It's basically I have half a year left. I'm at my final
Okay. And
semester
then
of.
you're going to be doing do you do a full undergraduate degree afterwards or is it
Yeah,
shorter?
yeah, I basically go through national service and then go through 3 or 4 years of undergraduate program, probably in
Okay. So we have like a
finance.
runway of time. National service is 2 years, right?
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. And so you were talking about going to a more quantitative role, portfolio optimization, which is much more capital markets oriented. But then your ultimate goal is to land a job in investment banking,
Yeah.
which is much more of a deal oriented role with like
Mm.
bottoms up analysis. Is this all stuff that you are planning? Like you want to have that strong quantitative background, you want to get a different kind of experience in various parts of finance. And then by a process of kind of not elimination, but by learning different areas, then you're saying like, okay, this is great. Like I like the kind of compliance risk management side. It was quite qualitative. I know I want to do something more quantitative. So then I go into kind of portfolio optimization, maybe risk management. And then you end up going into investment banking, which might be kind of your ultimate goal to apply all of this knowledge to.
Well, For me, it's more so of expectation because like investment banking, it's probably like after undergrad, like yeah, and therefore I want to like try to uh scale back a bit, maybe um just get the quantitative roles first, pick up my knowledge, slowly but surely just land a role in investment banking. Yeah.
And do you have any preference in, this is a question that we'll always ask as soon as analysts join a large class, is do you have a preference in industry group or product? Are you into the idea of going to an M&A group, media telco? Is there a specific industry that really interests you?
For me, I guess I'm more so M&A or IPO of like tech stuff. Those things, those industries with generative AI.
So my final question that I want to ask you is, because I know that you have lots of goals in mind and you're a high achiever. If you look back on this podcast in kind of 2 years' time, where do you hope that you'll be? And yeah, where do you hope you'll be in 2 years' time?
Oh, in 2 years' time, I hope to actually go to the dream university I want. Uh, studying business because 2 years later it's after my national service, and from there I'll have like a head start with a head start compared to all my peers having all these prerequisite finance knowledge before entering university. And in my first year of university, I hope to land a role in more so of the quantitative side of finance, maybe asset management, or if it's possible, then investment banking. Hopefully, as a summer analyst.
And there you have it. So, in 2 years' time, I would love for you to re-watch this podcast and see where you are today. And everyone that's joined us, I think it's gonna be tough to find someone that is more young and ambitious than you. But I would love to invite anyone that is to be be active on LinkedIn, be active on our CFI community page, so I could see you and invite you to be on our podcast. So that's all of you that's listening. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Member Spotlight, and I will see you again very soon.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. FinPod is brought to you by Corporate Finance Institute, the #1 rated online provider of finance and banking training, certifications, and productivity tools.